Deep within the forests of Eastern Europe, there stood a village that no map had ever dared to name. Travelers avoided it. Even priests refused to speak of it. Because everyone knew one terrifying legend. Never stay after sunset if you hear wedding bells. For over 300 years, those bells had rung every single night. Yet, no wedding had ever ended. No bride had ever returned home, and no groom had ever grown old. The villagers locked every door before dusk. Candles were extinguished, windows were covered, children were forbidden to whisper, because they believed something listened outside. Then, the bells began. 1, 2, 3. Their sound drifted through the forest like a slow heartbeat. An old woman quietly crossed herself. "They're dancing again," her grandson frowned. "Who?" She refused to answer. Instead, she closed every window. Far beyond the village, hidden beneath towering black pines, stood Castle Vesper. Its stone walls had long been swallowed by vines. Its towers disappeared into the fog. No birds flew above it. No wolves entered its grounds. Even the moonlight seemed afraid to touch it. Inside the grand ballroom, hundreds of candles suddenly lit themselves, one by one, without a single hand. Music slowly filled the room, not played by musicians, played by invisible instruments, a violin, a piano, a distant choir. Then, the dancers appeared, elegant men dressed in black velvet, women wearing silver gowns that shimmered like moonlight. Every face was beautiful. Every smile looked genuine. Every movement was perfect. Too perfect, because none of them blinked. At the center of the ballroom, a young woman slowly opened her eyes. She wore a magnificent white wedding dress. Not a single wrinkle marked the fabric. Fresh roses rested in her dark hair. She looked no older than 23. Yet, she had worn that same dress for 3 centuries. Her name was Isabella. She looked toward the enormous clock above the ballroom. Its hands never moved. It had been frozen at midnight since the night she died. Across the room, a tall man stood waiting. His black suit looked untouched by time. His pale face was handsome. His dark eyes reflected no light. His name was Lucian. When he smiled, every candle in the ballroom flickered. He walked toward Isabella. She offered him her hand. Without speaking, they began the first dance, exactly as they had every night. For 350 years, the music never changed, the steps never changed, the ending never came. Around them, hundreds of vampire couples danced in perfect silence. Each pair wore the clothing from the night they had fallen in love. A soldier and a nurse, a prince and a servant, a poet and a musician, a merchant and his bride. Centuries passed, yet they never aged, never argued, never laughed, never left. They simply danced forever. Then, something impossible happened. The castle doors opened. Every dancer froze. The music stopped. Even the candles seemed to hesitate. A young man stood in the doorway. He was alive. His cheeks carried color. His heart still beat. His breath formed clouds in the cold air. No living human had entered Castle Vesper in over 100 years. His name was Adrian Blackwood, a history professor from Boston. He had spent his life searching for forgotten legends. Old journals had spoken of a castle where love conquered death. He believed it was only another myth. Until tonight. He looked around in amazement. I finally found it. The ballroom remained perfectly silent. Hundreds of crimson eyes slowly turned toward him. Every vampire couple stopped dancing, watching, waiting. Lucian stepped forward. His voice was calm. "You are late." Adrian frowned. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else." Lucian smiled. "No. We've been waiting for you." The professor laughed nervously. "I'm only here to study the castle." "No," Lucian repeated. "You are here to finish the wedding." A cold chill raced through Adrian's body. "What wedding?" Isabella slowly approached him. For the first time in centuries, a tear rolled down her pale cheek. She whispered only 4 words. "You look like him." Adrian looked confused. "Like who?" Instead of answering, she gently touched the silver locket hanging around his neck. A family heirloom passed down for generations, one he had worn since childhood. The moment her fingers touched it, the locket suddenly sprang open. Inside wasn't a photograph. It was an ancient painted portrait. A man wearing the same black suit as Lucian, standing beside Isabella on their wedding day. Adrian's hands began to shake. Impossible. The face in the portrait was identical to his own. Every feature, every scar, even the same grey eyes. The ballroom doors slammed shut. The candles turned blood red. The frozen clock above them moved. For the first time in 350 years, its minute hand clicked forward. 1 single second. Lucian slowly raised an ancient silver goblet. The groom has finally returned. Outside, the wedding bells began ringing again. But this time, they rang 13 times. And somewhere beneath the castle, something that had slept for centuries opened its eyes. The 13th bell echoed across the forest. Its sound rolled through every room of Castle Vesper. The frozen wedding guests slowly smiled, not with happiness, with relief. Captain Lucian raised the silver goblet toward Adrian. "The ceremony may continue." Adrian backed away. "I'm not your groom. You've got the wrong man." No one answered. The enormous ballroom doors had already sealed themselves shut. The iron locks twisted on their own. Every window darkened. Outside, the moon disappeared behind black clouds. Adrian rushed toward the entrance. He pulled with all his strength. Nothing. The ancient oak doors refused to move, almost as if the castle itself had trapped him. Behind him, the orchestra began playing again. Only this time, the melody was different, slower, sadder, like a funeral pretending to be a wedding. Adrian slowly turned. The vampire couples had resumed dancing. Not one pair spoke. Not one pair blinked. Their feet glided across the marble floor without making a sound. Every smile remained frozen. Every embrace looked loving. Yet something felt horribly wrong. They never looked at each other. Every vampire was staring directly at Adrian, as though waiting for him to remember something. Then Isabella approached. Her white wedding dress flowed across the floor like mist. She stopped only inches away. "You truly don't remember?" Adrian stared at her. "Remember what?" Instead of answering, she gently lifted his left hand. On his ring finger, a faint silver mark slowly appeared. A perfect circle, as though a wedding ring had rested there for years. Adrian pulled his hand away. "I've never been married." "You were." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. 350 years ago. The professor laughed nervously. "That's impossible." Lucian calmly stepped closer. "No, it is impossible for ordinary people." Adrian's heartbeat quickened. "What are you talking about?" Lucian pointed toward the enormous portrait hanging above the fireplace. It showed hundreds of wedding guests standing beneath moonlight. Every face matched someone in the ballroom. Every dress, every suit, exactly the same. Nothing had changed, except one figure. Standing beside Isabella was a groom whose face had been violently scratched away. Only the rest of the painting remained untouched. Adrian frowned. Who destroyed it? Lucian's smile slowly faded. You did. Silence filled the ballroom. Then, the castle shook. Dust drifted from the ceiling, deep beneath the stone floor. Something massive moved. The wedding guests stopped dancing. Every head slowly tilted toward the basement. They looked afraid. Isabella quietly whispered, "It heard your heartbeat." What heard it? Before anyone answered, a deafening scream echoed through the castle. Not human, not animal. Something ancient. Something hungry. Every candle instantly turned blue. One vampire bride covered her ears. Another began crying. A groom quietly whispered, "It has awakened." Adrian looked around. "What is happening?" Lucian answered without taking his eyes off the floor. "The keeper of vows." The words hung in the cold air. "The one who binds every vampire couple." Adrian frowned. "I don't understand." "You will." Lucian slowly walked toward the grand staircase. "Come." "I am not following you." "You already have." The silver mark on Adrian's finger suddenly burned. Pain shot through his hand. His legs began moving on their own. Step, step, step. No matter how hard he resisted. He continued following Lucian. The ballroom doors slowly opened. Beyond them stretched a long hallway, lined with portraits. Hundreds of them. Every painting showed a vampire couple on their wedding day, each smiling, each beautiful, each holding hands. Adrian noticed something disturbing. Every groom's face looked peaceful. Every bride looked terrified. He stopped before one portrait. The bride had tears running down her cheeks, yet she was smiling. Another? The groom looked joyful. The bride's fingers were covered in dried blood. Another. The bride was secretly trying to pull away, while the groom held her tighter. Adrian whispered, "They didn't want to marry." Lucian stopped walking. They wanted love. They didn't know the price. The corridor ended at a gigantic black door. Unlike every other door in the castle, this one wasn't decorated with roses. It was covered in hundreds of silver wedding rings, thousands, perhaps, each engraved with 2 names. Every ring was cold. Every ring looked worn. Lucian touched one. It belonged to the first couple. Another. They lasted 80 years. Another. They lasted 12. Adrian frowned. What happens after that? Lucian slowly closed his eyes. They forget. They forget what? They forget why they loved each other. The words echoed through the corridor. The curse keeps their bodies alive. But it slowly drinks their memories. The first kiss. The first promise. The first laugh. The first time they fell in love. Year after year, century after century, until nothing remains. Only the dance, only the wedding, only the vow. Forever. Adrian stared back toward the silent ballroom. The couples weren't celebrating. They were prisoners. Then Isabella quietly admitted something no one else dared to say. "I don't remember my mother's face anymore." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I don't remember my own voice." Another tear. "I don't even remember why I loved Lucian." Lucian lowered his head. Neither did he. Suddenly, every silver ring hanging on the enormous door began rattling, one after another. Hundreds, then thousands. The castle trembled violently. A deep heartbeat echoed from the darkness beyond the door. Boom! 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 Every vampire instantly dropped to one knee, even Lucian, even Isabella. Only Adrian remained standing. A low voice emerged from the other side. Older than the castle, older than the forest, older than vampires themselves. Which couple has broken the vow? The silver mark on Adrian's finger suddenly began glowing bright crimson. Fresh words slowly appeared around the circle. "The groom has returned." Then, the black door slowly opened by itself. Inside stood a wedding altar, waiting, exactly as it had, for 350 years. The black door slowly opened. A freezing wind swept through the hallway. Every candle immediately went out. Only the wedding altar remained illuminated by a pale crimson light that seemed to come from nowhere. Captain Lucian stood motionless. Even he refused to cross the threshold. Adrian looked around. "What is this place?" No one answered. The altar sat in the center of a circular chamber. It wasn't made of stone. It was carved entirely from white marble, streaked with dark red veins. At its center rested 2 ancient silver rings, untouched, untarnished, waiting. Behind the altar stood an enormous stained glass window. It did not show saints or angels. It showed the very first vampire couple, a handsome nobleman, a beautiful young woman, standing beneath a blood-red moon, their lips almost touching, but not quite. Between them, a single drop of blood floated in the air. Adrian stepped closer. Beneath the glass, an inscription had been carved. Love was never the curse. The promise was. A low growl echoed beneath the floor. Boom! 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 The heartbeat was growing louder. The Keeper of Vows was approaching. Every vampire lowered their heads. Only Isabella remained standing beside Adrian. Her crimson eyes never left the stained glass. "I've seen this room every night for 350 years. She paused. "But I've never been allowed inside." "Why?" "Because only the bride and the groom may witness the beginning." The silver mark on Adrian's finger suddenly burned again. One of the rings slowly lifted from the altar. It floated through the air, straight toward him. Without touching his skin, it slipped onto his finger. It fit perfectly. The moment it settled, the chamber disappeared. The castle vanished. The wedding guests were gone. Adrian found himself standing somewhere else. Snow covered the ground. The year, 1321. Before him stood a magnificent castle surrounded by thousands of people. Music filled the air. Children laughed. Bells rang joyfully. A real wedding, not a cursed one. An elderly voice whispered beside him, "You are seeing the first night." Adrian turned. The hooded figure standing beside him wasn't a vampire. His skin looked almost transparent. His eyes shimmered like silver. "I am the witness. You remember what history forgot." The vision continued. The young nobleman from the stained glass smiled as he waited before the altar. His name was Victor. He wasn't a vampire, neither was his bride. Her name was Seraphine. She walked toward him wearing a white gown, brighter than fresh snow. The crowd cheered. They looked deeply in love, completely human. The witness quietly spoke. They promised each other forever. They believed forever meant happiness. Victor placed the ring upon Seraphine's hand. She smiled. Then, the sky darkened. Without warning, every bell stopped ringing. Every bird vanished. Every candle extinguished itself. The crowd looked upward. The moon had turned red. A stranger appeared among the wedding guests. No one saw him arrive. He wore an elegant black cloak. His face looked impossibly young, yet his eyes were older than kingdoms. He smiled warmly, almost kindly. "I bring a gift." No one recognized him. Victor stepped forward. "We need no gifts." The stranger nodded. "Every couple says that." He produced a crystal goblet. Inside shimmered dark crimson liquid. Not wine, blood. Drink, and your love will never die. The guests backed away. The priest shouted, "Leave this place!" The stranger laughed softly. You misunderstand. I offer eternity. Victor looked toward Seraphine. She was dying. Without anyone noticing, a poisoned needle hidden inside her wedding bouquet had pierced her hand. Her breathing slowed. Her skin became pale. The celebration dissolved into panic. Victor held her tightly. No, stay with me. The mysterious stranger calmly knelt beside them. There is one way. Victor's hands shook. Anything. Even forever? Yes. Even if forever becomes suffering, I don't care. Even if death would have been kinder. Victor looked only at Seraphine. I choose her. The stranger smiled. Exactly. He handed Victor the crystal goblet. Victor drank, then kissed Seraphine. A single drop of blood passed between them. The earth trembled. The moon darkened completely. Every candle burst into crimson flames. Seraphine opened her eyes. Not blue anymore. Scarlet. The first vampire bride had awakened. The crowd screamed. The priest raised a silver cross. Victor instinctively protected Seraphine. Then he smelled blood. Hundreds of terrified hearts beat around him. For the first time, he felt hunger. Real hunger. The witness quietly lowered his head. This was the first kiss. The vision blurred. The wedding celebration disappeared. Only the mysterious stranger remained, standing alone beneath the blood-red moon. He looked directly toward Adrian. Impossible. This wasn't a memory anymore. He could actually see him. The stranger smiled. I've been waiting for your family to remember. His eyes glowed like burning rubies. You think Lucian created the curse? He slowly shook his head. No, I did. The vision shattered. Adrian gasped as he found himself back inside Castle Vesper. The silver ring still rested on his finger. The heartbeat beneath the altar had become deafening. Boom, boom, boom. The marble floor suddenly cracked. Deep beneath the altar, something enormous began climbing upward. Every vampire in the castle fell to both knees. Even Lucian looked terrified. Isabella grabbed Adrian's hand. Her voice trembled for the first time. Don't let it see your eyes. What is it? She could barely whisper the answer. The first groom. The cracked marble exploded. A pale hand emerged from beneath the altar. Then another, wearing the oldest wedding ring ever forged. And from the darkness below, a voice whispered with horrifying calm, "My bride! Where have you been, my bride? Where have you been?" The voice echoed beneath the castle. Not loudly, softly, almost lovingly. Yet every vampire inside Castle Vesper trembled. The marble floor continued breaking apart. Ancient cracks spread beneath the altar like black lightning. A pale hand gripped the stone, then another. Slowly, a man climbed out of the darkness. He wore a magnificent black wedding suit, unlike anything Adrian had ever seen. Its silver embroidery had never faded. Its white gloves were spotless. His face was breathtakingly handsome. Not a wrinkle, not a scar. Only his eyes betrayed his age. They were older than history itself. They glowed like liquid crimson. Every vampire lowered their head. No one dared look directly at him. Lucien whispered, "The first groom." The ancient man smiled. I remember when they called me Victor. Adrian's heart pounded. The same Victor he had seen in the vision. The first man to drink the cursed blood. Victor slowly stepped onto the broken altar. His polished shoes left no sound. He looked around the chamber. Every vampire couple remained frozen, like frightened children before their father. Then, his eyes settled upon Adrian. The smile vanished. "You are not the groom," Adrian swallowed. "No." Victor tilted his head. "Then why are you wearing my ring?" The silver band around Adrian's finger suddenly tightened. Pain shot through his hand. He tried pulling it off. It refused to move. Victor calmly extended his hand. "Return it." Adrian couldn't. The ring had become part of his skin. Fresh veins of silver spread across his hand, climbing slowly toward his heart. Isabella gasped. "The bond has begun." Lucien stepped forward. "Master, he doesn't know." Victor looked disappointed. None of them ever do. The ancient groom slowly walked toward the enormous stained glass window. He gently touched the image of Seraphine. For the first time, sadness crossed his face. "I searched for her. For 700 years. Adrian frowned, but she became the first vampire bride. Victor closed his eyes. No, she disappeared. The entire chamber fell silent. "What?" Victor nodded. "The woman beside me in the vision was not the woman who woke beside me." Every vampire looked confused. Victor continued. "When I gave her my blood, something else answered." The candles suddenly turned black. Dark smoke drifted upward. The temperature dropped. Victor's voice became almost a whisper. "Love survived." But she did not. Adrian remembered the mysterious stranger beneath the blood-red moon. "The man who gave you the goblet. Who was he?" Victor slowly turned. For the first time, fear appeared in his ancient eyes. "I never learned his name. I only remember his smile." The castle suddenly shook violently. Every portrait along the walls cracked. The painted brides began crying tears of blood. One by one, hundreds of portraits, hundreds of crimson tears. Then, every portrait spoke together. "He is coming." Lucien stepped backward. "No, not again." Victor looked toward the ceiling. "He found us." A deafening crash echoed above. Something enormous landed on the castle roof. The stone towers groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling. Another impact, closer, then another. Adrian rushed toward a narrow window. Outside, hundreds of enormous black bats circled the castle. Not ordinary bats. Each was the size of a wolf. Their glowing red eyes pierced the darkness. They weren't attacking. They were waiting, watching, as though escorting someone. The clouds slowly parted. A blood-red moon illuminated the castle. Standing on the tallest tower was a lone figure. He wore the same elegant black cloak Adrian had seen in the vision. Not a single year had touched his face. His smile remained warm, friendly, almost comforting. He removed his hat politely, then bowed toward Victor. "My old friend." Victor's hands clenched. "You promised never to return." The stranger laughed softly. "I keep many promises, but never that one." The vampire couples slowly retreated from the windows. Even the fearless Lucien looked terrified. Adrian whispered, "Who is he?" Victor answered without taking his eyes off the tower. "The matchmaker." Silence. "The first vampire. The creator of every eternal marriage." Lightning split the crimson sky. The matchmaker gently opened his arms. "My dear couples, I've come to celebrate another wedding." The castle gates burst open by themselves. Thousands of wedding bells began ringing. Not 13, hundreds, every bell that had ever echoed through Castle Vesper. The ballroom beneath them suddenly filled with music. Invisible violins, ghostly choirs, ancient pianos, playing the same melody that had trapped the couples for centuries. The matchmaker smiled wider. He pointed directly at Adrian. "Then Isabella. The bride has waited. The groom has returned." Victor shouted, "He belongs to no one." The matchmaker calmly shook his head. "Oh, but he does." He slowly raised an ancient black wedding invitation, sealed with crimson wax. Across its surface, new letters burned into existence. The ceremony shall finish before the next sunrise. The invitation burst into flames. At that exact moment, Adrian's silver ring and Isabella's wedding ring began glowing together. Both rings pulled them toward each other. Neither of them could resist. And somewhere deep beneath Castle Vesper, a second heartbeat began answering the first. The twin heartbeats echoed beneath Castle Vesper. Boom! 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 The sound grew louder with every passing second. Adrian tried to pull away from Isabella. He couldn't. Their wedding rings burned like molten silver. An invisible force slowly drew them together. The matchmaker watched from the highest tower, smiling, patiently, as though this moment had been planned for centuries. Victor stepped between them. "Break the bond!" Lucian immediately grabbed Adrian's arm. 3 other vampire couples joined him. Together, they tried pulling Adrian backward. Nothing happened. It was as if the castle itself had claimed him. The matchmaker laughed softly. "You cannot separate what the vow has already accepted." Lightning flashed across the crimson sky. The ballroom doors suddenly burst open. Every vampire inside the castle turned toward the grand staircase. A woman was descending. No one had seen her before. She wore a black veil that covered her face. Her wedding dress wasn't white. It was deep crimson. Its fabric looked wet, as though it had been stitched from fresh blood. Every vampire immediately bowed, even Victor. The mysterious bride stopped halfway down the staircase. She carried an ancient silver key. Unlike every other object in the castle, it reflected sunlight. Impossible. There was no sunlight, only moonlight. Victor whispered, "The widow." Adrian frowned. "Who is she?" Lucian answered quietly. "The only bride who survived the ceremony." The veiled woman slowly raised the silver key. Without speaking, she pointed toward a hidden doorway behind the altar. A loud click echoed through the chamber. Stone walls slowly shifted. A secret passage appeared. Cold air rushed upward. It carried the scent of roses and old parchment. The widow finally spoke. Her voice sounded almost human. "The chamber of truth has opened." Every vampire froze. One bride quietly began crying. Another groom slowly stepped backward. No one wanted to enter. Adrian looked confused. "What is the chamber of truth?" The widow lowered her veil slightly. Only her lips became visible. "No vampire can lie inside." Silence spread across the castle. Lucian's face turned pale. Victor closed his eyes. The matchmaker stopped smiling. For the very first time, his expression changed. The widow looked directly at Adrian. "You alone may enter. And if I don't, the wedding ends." Hope flashed across Adrian's face. "Then I won't." The widow slowly shook her head. "So does everyone inside." She pointed toward the ballroom. Every vampire couple had begun turning gray. Tiny cracks spread across their skin, like ancient statues beginning to crumble. Isabella looked down at her hands. Pieces of pale skin broke away like dust. "Our time is running out." Victor stepped toward Adrian. "For 700 years, we searched for this room. We were never allowed inside. Why? Because we already knew too many lies." The hidden passage grew brighter. Adrian slowly walked forward. Isabella followed. So did Victor. Lucian reached the entrance, but an invisible wall threw him backward. Only 3 people could enter. The hidden chamber was unlike anything Adrian expected. No coffins, no blood, no candles, only mirrors. Thousands of mirrors, covering every wall, every ceiling, every pillar. Each mirror reflected a different vampire couple, some laughing, some crying, some embracing, some attacking each other. None of the reflections matched reality. At the center of the room stood a single stone table. Upon it rested a thick black book. Its cover carried no title. Only 2 silver wedding rings intertwined. As Adrian approached, the book opened by itself. Its blank pages slowly filled with crimson ink. Not writing. Questions, the first sentence appeared. Who created love? No one answered. The ink vanished. A second question appeared. Who created the curse? Victor looked toward the matchmaker standing outside the chamber. You. The moment he spoke, every mirror shattered at once. The sound echoed like thunder. The matchmaker smiled again. But that isn't the whole truth. The broken mirrors instantly repaired themselves. A third question slowly burned across the page, larger than the others, darker, almost alive. Who asked for eternal love first? Victor lowered his head. His hands trembled. No. The widow quietly whispered, Answer. Victor looked at Seraphine's portrait reflected in one of the mirrors. A single tear rolled down his face. Then he finally confessed. I did. The chamber shook violently. Every mirror changed. Instead of reflecting vampire couples, they now showed Victor kneeling beneath the blood-red moon, begging, Please, I'll give anything. Just don't let her die. The mysterious stranger had never forced him. He had offered. Victor had chosen. The matchmaker quietly applauded. At last, the truth. Adrian stared at Victor in disbelief. You made the bargain. Victor nodded. I condemned them all. Every vampire in the ballroom gasped. For centuries, they had believed the matchmaker alone had cursed them. Now they knew. One desperate promise, spoken by one heartbroken groom, had changed history forever. The black book slowly turned another page. One final question appeared. The letters glowed brighter than blood, brighter than fire, brighter than the moon itself. If love created the curse, can love destroy it? Before anyone could answer, every mirror in the chamber suddenly reflected someone who wasn't there. A beautiful woman wearing the same white wedding dress from 7 centuries ago. Seraphine. She wasn't standing behind them. She wasn't in the room. Yet every mirror showed her smiling. She gently raised one finger, pointing toward the castle's deepest tower. Then, every reflection whispered the exact same words. I was never the bride. The mirrors exploded into darkness. The castle trembled, and somewhere above, the matchmaker's smile slowly disappeared. For the first time in 700 years, someone had uncovered the secret. He had buried. I was never the bride. The words echoed through the shattered chamber of truth. Then, every mirror went dark. Not cracked, not broken. Empty. As though they had never reflected anyone at all. The castle shook violently. Above, thousands of bats burst into the night sky. The blood-red moon disappeared behind swirling black clouds. The matchmaker no longer smiled. His crimson eyes narrowed. No, she cannot speak. Victor slowly stepped backward. His face had turned completely pale. Seraphine, it really was you. The widow lowered her veil. For 7 centuries, she has waited for someone to remember. The black book slammed shut. Its silver rings glowed brightly before melting into liquid light. The light floated through the chamber, forming a doorway. Not made of stone, not made of magic, made of memories. The doorway showed another place, a lonely tower, hidden above the clouds. No vampire inside Castle Vesper had ever seen it before. The widow whispered, the forgotten tower, the place where the true bride was imprisoned. Adrian frowned. If Seraphine wasn't here, then who married Victor? Nobody answered. Even Lucien looked terrified. Victor slowly covered his face. I never asked. I was so relieved she was alive. I never questioned who came back. The matchmaker's calm voice echoed through the castle, and that was your greatest mistake. Lightning struck the tallest tower. The mysterious doorway flickered. Inside, a young woman sat beside a narrow window. Her white wedding dress was faded with age, silver chains wrapped around her wrists. Yet she had never grown old. She looked exactly as Adrian had seen her in the vision. Beautiful, human, alive. Seraphine slowly looked toward the doorway, her blue eyes filled with tears. Not crimson, blue. She had never become a vampire. She softly whispered, "Victor." The ancient groom collapsed onto one knee. His entire body trembled. No! It can't be. He reached toward the doorway. His hand passed straight through. He couldn't touch her. For 700 years, she had been only a few hundred feet away. Yet separated by a prison, no vampire could cross. The widow quietly spoke. The matchmaker never granted eternal love. He divided it. Everyone stared at her. She continued. He took Seraphine's soul and locked it away. Then he created another bride. From Victor's greatest desire. Adrian's heartbeat quickened. You mean, the woman who became the first vampire wasn't Seraphine? No. The widow shook her head. She was the reflection. Silence filled the chamber. The perfect copy, the perfect smile, the perfect memories, the perfect wife. But never the real woman. Victor slowly remembered. Tiny fragments returned. His first dance, her laugh, her touch. Something had always felt different. He had ignored it. Because love had blinded him. The matchmaker applauded slowly. How wonderful. 700 years, and you finally understand. His voice grew colder. Humans always ask for forever. They never ask what survives forever. The castle groaned. Every vampire bride in the ballroom suddenly clutched her chest. One by one, their eyes changed. The warmth vanished. Their smiles disappeared. Their faces became expressionless, as though invisible masks had fallen away. Lucien stared at Isabella. She looked back at him. For the first time, there was no recognition. She quietly asked, "Who are you?" Lucien froze. "No." She blinked again. "Why am I wearing this dress?" Around the ballroom, the same questions spread. "Who is he? Where am I? Why can't I leave?" Hundreds of vampire couples began forgetting each other. Not slowly, instantly. The curse was collapsing. The matchmaker sighed. So disappointing. I spent centuries perfecting them. Victor looked toward him with burning hatred. They were never couples. They were prisoners. The matchmaker smiled. They were art. The words echoed through the castle. Perfect devotion. Perfect obedience. Perfect eternity. He spread his arms proudly. Love is flawed. So, I improved it. The blood moon suddenly cracked. A single beam of white moonlight pierced the clouds. It landed directly upon the forgotten tower. Seraphine stood. The silver chains around her wrists began glowing. She looked directly at Adrian. Not Victor. Adrian. You carry the first promise. He looked confused. What promise? She smiled sadly. The promise Victor forgot. She gently placed her hand over her own heart, then spoke the words that had never been spoken on the original wedding night. If you truly love someone, you must let them choose. Victor closed his eyes. At last, he remembered. The matchmaker had asked him only one question beneath the blood-red moon. Shall I ask your bride? Victor, terrified of losing her, had answered before she ever could. No, I choose for both of us. The chamber fell completely silent. One selfish decision, made in grief, had chained thousands of couples for 7 centuries. Adrian slowly looked at Victor. You never gave her a choice. Victor lowered his head. Fresh tears rolled down his face. No, I didn't. Suddenly, the silver wedding ring on Adrian's finger split down the middle. A sharp crack echoed through Castle Vesper. Every vampire looked toward him. The widow gasped. It has begun. What has? She looked toward the highest tower, where the matchmaker was no longer standing. He knows. The first vow has been broken. A shadow larger than the castle itself slowly rose behind the blood-red moon. Not a bat, not a vampire. Something with enormous wings. Its eyes opened like twin crimson suns. Every bell in Castle Vesper rang at once. The matchmaker's voice echoed from the darkness. If the first promise dies, then the first bride must die with it. High above, the chains around Seraphine suddenly shattered, and something monstrous launched itself toward the Forgotten Tower. The creature struck the Forgotten Tower. The entire castle shook. Stone exploded into the night. The blood-red moon vanished behind enormous black wings. Adrian looked upward in horror. The beast wasn't flying. It was gliding. Its body was covered in black feathers instead of fur. Its face looked almost human, except for its eyes. There were none. Only 2 empty pits that leaked crimson mist. Its mouth stretched from ear to ear, filled with hundreds of silver fangs. The widow whispered only one name. The Collector. Every vampire immediately backed away. Even Victor. The matchmaker sent it. The creature crashed through the tower wall. Inside, Seraphine never screamed. She simply stood, waiting, as if she had known this moment would come. The chains that had imprisoned her for 7 centuries fell to the floor, one by one. The Collector slowly approached. Its claws scraped across the stone. Each step echoed like a church bell. Boom, boom, boom! Adrian couldn't watch. We have to help her! Victor grabbed his shoulder. You don't understand. The Collector doesn't kill. It erases. Adrian frowned. What does that mean? Victor's voice trembled. It devours memories. It leaves the body alive. But empty. Lucien stared toward the tower. So that's where our memories went. Every forgotten laugh. Every forgotten kiss. Every forgotten promise. The Collector had stolen them all, for centuries. The matchmaker's voice drifted across the sky. You cannot build perfect love unless you remove imperfect memories. Lightning flashed. The creature opened its enormous mouth. Inside, there wasn't a tongue. There were thousands of glowing memories. Children laughing, couples dancing, first kisses, wedding vows. Every memory ever stolen from every vampire couple still existed, trapped inside the monster. The widow gasped. They're alive. Victor's crimson eyes widened. Then Isabella's memories, Lucien's memories, all of them. They were never lost. The matchmaker smiled from the darkness. I simply collected them. Seraphine slowly faced the monster. She wasn't afraid. Instead, she held out her hand. The Collector suddenly stopped. Its claws dug into the stone. It tilted its head. Almost confused, Seraphine smiled gently. I remember you. The beast froze. I remember. When you were human. Silence. The matchmaker's smile vanished. No. Don't say his name. Seraphine looked directly into the creature's empty face. Elias. The Collector staggered backward. Its enormous body trembled violently. The crimson mist leaking from its eyes began turning silver. Victor whispered, "It had a name." Seraphine nodded. He was the first witness, the first friend, the first man who tried to stop the curse. The matchmaker shouted from above, "Silence!" A wave of dark energy blasted across the castle. Windows shattered, towers cracked, the ballroom ceiling collapsed. The creature struck the forgotten tower. The entire castle shook. Stone exploded into the night. The blood-red moon vanished behind enormous black wings. Adrian looked upward in horror. The beast wasn't flying. It was gliding. Its body was covered in black feathers instead of fur. Its face looked almost human, except for its eyes. There were none. Only 2 empty pits that leaked crimson mist. Its mouth stretched from ear to ear, filled with hundreds of silver fangs. The widow whispered only one name: the Collector. Every vampire immediately backed away, even Victor. The matchmaker sent it. The creature crashed through the tower wall. Inside, Seraphine never screamed. She simply stood, waiting, as if she had known this moment would come. The chains that had imprisoned her for 7 centuries fell to the floor. One by one, the Collector slowly approached. Its claws scraped across the stone. Each step echoed like a church bell. Boom! 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 Adrian couldn't watch. "We have to help her." Victor grabbed his shoulder. "You don't understand. The Collector doesn't kill. It erases." Adrian frowned. "What does that mean?" Victor's voice trembled. "It devours memories. It leaves the body alive, but empty." Lucienne stared toward the tower. "So that's where our memories went. Every forgotten laugh, every forgotten kiss, every forgotten promise. The Collector had stolen them all, for centuries." The matchmaker's voice drifted across the sky. "You cannot build perfect love unless you remove imperfect memories." Lightning flashed. The creature opened its enormous mouth. Inside, there wasn't a tongue. There were thousands of glowing memories. Children laughing, couples dancing, first kisses, wedding vows. Every memory ever stolen from every vampire couple still existed, trapped inside the monster. The widow gasped. "They're alive." Victor's crimson eyes widened. Then Isabella's memories. Lucienne's memories. All of them. They were never lost. The matchmaker smiled from the darkness. "I simply collected them." Seraphine slowly faced the monster. She wasn't afraid. Instead, she held out her hand. The Collector suddenly stopped. Its claws dug into the stone. It tilted its head, almost confused. Seraphine smiled gently. "I remember you." The beast froze. "I remember when you were human." Silence. The matchmaker's smile vanished. "No, don't say his name." Seraphine looked directly into the creature's empty face. "Elias." The Collector staggered backward. Its enormous body trembled violently. The crimson mist leaking from its eyes began turning silver. Victor whispered, "It had a name." Seraphine nodded. He was the first witness, the first friend, the first man who tried to stop the curse. The matchmaker shouted from above, "Silence!" A wave of dark energy blasted across the castle. Windows shattered, towers cracked, the ballroom ceiling collapsed. Yet Seraphine never looked away from the monster. "You tried to save us. You refused the curse. You refused eternity. You chose death." Instead of forgetting, the Collector roared, not in anger, in pain. Fragments of glowing memories burst from its body. Tiny lights floated across the night sky. One landed beside Lucian. The moment it touched him, his eyes widened. He remembered his first meeting with Isabella, She had been laughing in a rose garden. Another light touched Isabella. She remembered dancing beneath spring blossoms. Another. A groom remembered proposing beside a frozen lake. Another. A bride remembered the face of her mother. Across Castle Vesper, hundreds of vampire couples suddenly embraced each other. Not because the curse forced them, because they finally remembered why they had fallen in love. Tears filled ancient eyes. Laughter echoed through halls that had known only silence. The curse was breaking. The matchmaker screamed. "Stop remembering!" His voice shook the heavens. The collector fell to its knees. Its enormous wings slowly disappeared. Black feathers dissolved into silver light. The monstrous body shrank, until only a young man remained, no older than 25. His clothes were torn. His face carried centuries of sorrow. Elias looked at Seraphine. "You remembered me." She smiled. "I promised I always would." Victor stared at Elias in disbelief. "You tried to save us." Elias nodded. "The night you drank from the goblet, I tried to destroy it. I failed." The matchmaker turned me into his collector. For 700 years, I stole every memory, hoping someone would one day remember mine. Adrian slowly stepped toward him. "Can the curse still be stopped?" Elias looked toward the blood-red moon. His smile faded. "Yes, but only if the first bride and the first groom stand together. Before sunrise." Victor immediately looked toward the forgotten tower. Seraphine. At last, they could finally meet again. But the matchmaker began laughing. A calm, terrifying laugh. "You still don't understand." The clouds parted. The blood moon shone brighter than ever before. And standing behind the matchmaker were two figures. One was Seraphine. The other was also Seraphine. Identical. The same face, the same dress, the same voice. One smiled warmly. The other cried silently. The matchmaker spread his arms. "Tell me, which bride is real?" Victor stared at both women. His hands began shaking. 700 years earlier, he had chosen the wrong one. Now, he had to choose again. And if he chose wrong, every vampire couple in Castle Vesper would remain cursed forever. The two brides stood beneath the blood-red moon. Neither moved, neither spoke. They looked identical. The same white wedding dress, the same sapphire eyes, the same silver hair. Even their tears fell at the same moment. Victor couldn't breathe. For 700 years, he had dreamed of seeing Seraphine again. Now, he didn't know which one she was. The matchmaker smiled. "Go on. Choose. You've done it before." The words struck Victor harder than any blade. He slowly walked forward. His ancient hands trembled. One bride smiled softly. The other lowered her head. Adrian looked carefully. "There has to be a difference." "There isn't." Lucien shook his head. "The matchmaker creates perfect reflections. The eye cannot tell them apart." The vampire couples gathered behind Adrian. Everyone watched. No one dared speak. The matchmaker clapped once. The sound echoed through Castle Vesper. "You have until sunrise. If Victor chooses the wrong bride, every memory returned tonight will disappear forever." The eastern horizon already carried the faintest shade of gray. Time was running out. Victor stopped before the first bride. She gently reached for his hand. "My love, I've waited for you." Her voice was perfect, exactly as he remembered. He closed his eyes. His heart wanted to believe. Then he turned toward the second bride. She didn't reach for him. She simply stood quietly. Tears rolled down her face. Victor whispered, "Say something." She smiled sadly. "What should I say? I've already lost 700 years. Silence filled the castle. The matchmaker laughed. "Clever. Very clever." Adrian stepped beside Victor. "Don't listen to their words. Listen to your memories." Victor looked confused. "I barely remember." Elias suddenly walked forward. "The Collector took your memories, but not your heart." Victor slowly closed his eyes. For the first time in centuries, he ignored what he saw, ignored what he heard. Instead, he remembered one tiny moment. Not the wedding, not the curse,